Sticking with the Mizuno Pro Line reviews, Mark. We got the last one in the series, the 245.
Yeah, well, let's save this one for last because I really like this golf club. I actually built up a set. I haven't really played with them much yet, but after looking at the data and the numbers on them, you know, it's a really good golf club in a pretty small package.
Tell us what stands out. Why do you see it as something that you
Well, I mean, obviously the performance rating we got on the, you know, missed hits off center, and this is at 80 miles an hour, right? Which is a ½ inch off center, which is a fair amount. Was 4.7. That's one of the highest we see in America, regardless how big the club is.
Yep.
And again, that leads into the fact that the size of the club and big, huge things aren't necessarily more forgiving. But you know, it's a really good blend between a really forgiving golf club that looks pretty, small and a good package.
Yeah.
So I really like it.
I don't recall seeing 4.7 in the overall rating.
I don't actually, no. And especially looking at this, I wouldn't have thought this was the one that's going to produce a 4.7 either. But yeah, again, it's not real thick on the top line. They did a little bit of carving on the back. I wish they had done a little more to make this look a little thinner.
Yep.
It's just the angle you do the back of the club. Like we kind of mentioned on the blades, they got a little thicker on the top to use the CG, which I did a million years ago with bulky wedges, before they even started doing this stuff. But I wish they'd actually made a little narrower looking. Yeah. Because it really wouldn't change performance much. It's just a cosmetic. But it's inspiring because it looks a little easier to hit with a thicker top line. And it's just a really good golf club all around. It's hollow, doesn't sound bad, which some of them do, a little clicky, and they didn't get the flyers out of it. And if you look at the graph here, we look at 80 miles an hour, on the ½ inch off center, or the ½ inch off center, the one on the left here, that's really straight line.
Straight, yeah.
And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm kind of chasing the distance thing. I'm honestly a 7-iron, like 80 miles an hour, but I'd like a club to go further. The problem is some of the clubs I've tried, yes, they go further and hit in the middle, but when I miss-hit them, especially low, I hit a lookout shot thin because I'm kind of shallow. It drops at 20 yards. Yeah. And here that doesn't happen.
No,
which is kind of nice.
We're down in the 15-yard range, and we're talking about ½ inch low, so that's way down the face.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty far down.
But I mean, if you go to our website, head to Cool Clubs Reviews, you're going to see all of these graphs, and you'll notice how straight, how tight from left to right this grouping is. And yes, there's going to be trade-offs when you start getting a hollow body like this, which is unlike the other two sister clubs in this line. You are going to get a bit more distance. You've also got lower loft, which helps with that. So we're seeing 5 yards difference between this and the 243. So we've got about 15 yards difference between the blade and the hollow body, right? So it offers a really good blending option because you might want a little more out of your long irons.
Oh, absolutely.
A little distance, a little more height because the speed's traveling a little faster.
Yeah, and the funny thing about distances and gapping between irons is, and everybody thinks, 10 yards from your clubs. Yeah, that sounds great, but that's not reality, right? If you're swinging the driver at 60 miles an hour, you can have like 5. Right. Contrary problem too. I'm trying to get 15 between my clubs because I want to hit something 80 and I want to be able to hit it 200. So you don't get 10 yards. It's 12 clubs or 14 clubs, and you don't get that many. So having a little bit more space between the clubs does make sense. Right.
You want to optimize your peak height, optimize your stopping power, and this one's stopping power just falls under the 4.0, which is good for a lower lofted
Yeah,
club.
It's not terrible. It's a pretty strong loft. Obviously, it's got a little spring effect to it. Not a ton. So 3.8 is not bad.
So let's jump into the numbers in the columns here, and let's just see where this kind of sits in terms of. So it actually spins just a touch less than the 243, but not drastic amounts. And it's launching a little lower. So it's definitely going to be a little more penetrating flight, and that's why the stopping power is reduced. Right. But if you look at the spin launch number, which is launch,
it's actually a little higher.
Right, because overall those kind of things negate each other, and the ball's coming out through a nice window.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. The launch angle between this and the JPX4 is identical, right? But it goes, another 4 yards longer, and it spins, a little bit more.
And that's a good bit of information because people out there looking at the JPX line as definitely more of a game improvement line, not as a whole, but just generally speaking. And then you've got the 245, which is the more game improvement end of the Pro line, and they kind of cross over each other.
Yeah, there's a crossover point there.
Yeah. So this is a great one. If you're looking for something really great looking in the bag, I mean, I'm not sure there is a better looking, hollow body out there.
It looks like a blade in the bag, right? Unless you're really close to us, you look at this from 20 feet away or whatever, you're gonna think it's a blade. Yeah. And it doesn't look bad from the top either.
So it's offering all of those performance gains in terms of dispersion, stopping power, distance, in that kind of package.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to play around with this that I've got built. So I had them for like a year and never put them together, but I'm compelled to try now.
Yeah. Well, make sure you ask your fitter if you can give that one a run. Head to coolclubs.com and book your fitting today.